Moving on, the audio sound bites. This is the suit of Arizona. We have a little montage here of all of the state-controlled media on the so-called controversial Arizona immigration law.
The U.S. Justice Department suing to block Arizona's controversial new immigration law.
The federal government sues to block Arizona's controversial immigration law.
The Department of Justice today sued the state of Arizona over its controversial new immigration law.
The Department of Justice filed a suit over Arizona's controversial new immigration law.
The Justice Department's filed a lawsuit against Arizona's controversial immigration bill.
Filing a lawsuit against Arizona over the state's controversial immigration law.
The Justice Department has filed a lawsuit today against Arizona's controversial immigration bill.
The United States today sued the state of Arizona. It is about the controversial new immigration law.
It's not controversial. 70% of the country supports it. What's controversial is Obama. What is controversial is this lawsuit. What's controversial is the fact the federal government does not want to enforce its own law and protect the borders. That's the controversy. But the media is trying to make the controversy here the Arizona law. It's not. 70% of the American people support it. Here's the governor, Jan Brewer, yesterday in Gilbert, Arizona. This is their 90th birthday celebration, by the way. A portion of what she said.
There's a movement throughout the United States of people wanting some action from the federal government. And so we would probably see these types of bills being enacted in other states. We need the federal government to do their job, and if they don't do it, then Arizona will.
And she made a further observation about this.
They attempted to scare people in responding to the initial presentation of the bill. Obviously, today we found that the federal government did not address that issue of racial profiling into their lawsuit.
Yeah, a reporter had asked her, the lawsuit said the law is about attrition, that its sole purpose is to scare people out of the state. Do you agree with that? And she says, no, we're not going to scare people out of the state. We're trying to enforce the federal law. We're trying to enforce immigration law. We're not trying to scare anybody out of the country. Controversial immigration law on Google gets over 5 million hits. If you search controversial immigration law, that's how many hits you'll get on a Google search. We've had this drummed into our heads 24/7, 365. Controversial immigration law. What's controversial is this administration. What's controversial is the lawsuit. What's controversial is the law, the federal law, is not being enforced. Now, Governor Jan Brewer makes the point here that we found out and looked at the lawsuit, the federal government did not address the issue of racial profiling at all. Let's go back to May 19th in the Rose Garden. Obama and Senor Wences, the Mexican president Felipe Calderon, they held a joint press conference. This is some of what Obama said.
My administration is taking a very close look at the Arizona law. We're examining any implications, especially for civil rights, because in the United States of America, no law-abiding person, be they an American citizen or a visitor or tourist from Mexico, should ever be subject to suspicion simply because of what they look like. Fair reading of the language of the statute indicates that it gives the possibility of individuals who are deemed suspicious of being illegal immigrants from being harassed or arrested. And the judgments that are going to be made in applying this law are troublesome.
So Obama said he told the Justice Department to look at the law because it would lead to racial profiling. But his own lawsuit doesn't mention it. You know why his lawsuit doesn't mention racial profiling? It's because there isn't any racial profiling in the Arizona law. The regime's been lying about this aspect of the Arizona bill, the Arizona law, ever since it first came up. There is no racial profiling in it. And that's why racial profiling is not part of Obama's lawsuit.
What college do you dream of sending your kids?
Now, to be clear, the lawsuit itself, this is actually kind of funny. The Justice Department's lawsuit against Arizona doesn't accuse Arizona of profiling or violating civil rights. But the same Justice Department which filed suit has also attached a brief in support of an injunction against the Arizona law, and it does suggest that it will cause the harassment of aliens who are in the state, whether legally or not. So the lawsuit itself does not mention profiling, but they've attached a brief to it. which does. Now, this is very important, very crucial. One of the reasons they may not have stressed the civil rights aspect is because the law still hasn't gone into effect. So there is no one they can point to as having been discriminated against. The law doesn't go into effect till the end of this month. They're trying to stop this thing before it's even gone into effect. Howard Feynman on Mess NBC last night was asked the following question. Would the best political argument against this law be to go ahead and let it be enforced? And would the worst argument against it have it stayed by a court during a midterm election period?
If they were to enforce that to the letter, the scene would be somewhere between the Keystone Cops and the World War II internment of the Japanese. I mean, they would be arresting people right and left. They would be stopping everybody at traffic lights. They would be overloading the federal system because they'd be transporting the people that they captured to federal authorities. It would create mayhem, and the sight of that on national TV, I think, would be very damaging to the Republicans and to that cause.
Now, there's just one problem with this analysis, and that is you can't arrest people by stopping them at a traffic light. This is another misrepresentation of the Arizona law. You can't go up to anybody at any time because of the way they look or the fact they're stopped at a traffic light and arrest them. They have to commit some offense prior. From speeding to robbery to murder to whatever it is, running drugs. But you just can't randomly stop people under this law. And it is being misrepresented in toto by the schlubs in the slavish state-controlled media. There is no racial profiling in the bill, and there is no random stopping for somebody who's not suspected of committing a crime. So you just can't go up to people at a red light when they're stopped. Hey, are you an immigrant? You illegal? Let me see your papers. Can't do it. Law doesn't permit it. And by the way, when's the last time any Democrat complained about what FDR did with the Japanese? They never complained about that. National security, the Democrats are not embarrassed by that at all. In fact, they try to make it sound like the Republicans are the ones that do that. The Republicans don't do that. FDR interned hundreds of thousands of people, Japanese. He was a man of his times, a great man, the greatest president ever. Talk about civil rights violations.